It is daily trading recap for this Monday on the 18th of October 2021. Pretty nice little green day to start off the week here on two different tickers, PROG and WTRH. We will break down those in a little bit, but feeling really nice about those coming into today with some awesome just mental fortitude. Once again, continuing to block out the noise, establish what we want to see beforehand, getting finer and finer with the details and the little minutia of what we want to see, what we want to do, focusing in more on that, not just becoming so broad and scatterbrained and everything too. I think we're making great strides in the correct direction. Not even just like we're looking in the right direction, but we've got to be continually progressing in that direction as well, which I think each and every single one of these days is continuing to do. Great mental space that way. Bitcoin's still hovering around 60K. We thought we were going to get some spikes over the weekend, but nothing really overnight or after hours pre-market that looked great for any Bitcoin sector play, but Mara and Ryan moving pretty decently well in market hours here. Let's go over some other market internals for the day as well, quick for housekeeping. Nasdaq's still pretty low dollar volume, 147 billion after 17 minutes after the close here. Nice see, we're looking at $194 billion volume. OTC's $2.6 billion volume. OTCs are kind of riding at the top end of the range for dollar volume of what they've been showing, which is pretty interesting to see. So maybe we get some more insight or flashing out of them too. I certainly had two other OTC boys that I was looking at on my watches coming into today. WTRH and PROG were my main watches, and those are the ones that I did play. But then, of course, I was looking at GGII, like the chart there. Of course, this former runner has been known to put in some crazy percentage moves. Even like the past two moves today too just look so small and abysmal compared to what it did. This is back this year still, early 2021. And then coming on from yesterday, had a little bit of a hard, not the most great close from Friday, and then opening up Monday did not have any real amount of gap up. Sold off some more. Tempting for me to even just take this one off of my watch list and all my charts, but as it was kind of holding under VWAP, I knew too of maybe this one could pull back. So I knew I wasn't really going to be prone to trade it, but said, hey, just don't like disregard it completely or immediately right now. And sure enough, comes back, climbs back to that 11 mark, comes back again to test this little 12 key area that was high or little resistance point from that previous trading day on Friday. Get a nice breakthrough that pops up to 13. Then you get another little consolidation range there. It tops up to 14 during market hours in the day and actually ends up going just under 16 there for a continuation move, but then hard sell off for today as well. So, and lessening volume. So be interesting to see if it has any inflection over this red to green line coming into tomorrow and then comes back to test that 16 mark. It'll be a surprise and shock to me and certainly prompt me to get in this thing if it has more upside beyond there of shorts that are now screwed over if they're holding that. But that will be an interesting one. And yeah, didn't really want to trade it because I was already focused on the other two ones, at least from the start of today. And then BTZI, I think I also mentioned as well on that Friday for my watches coming into today. Not necessarily a Bitcoin sector play. It's a blockchain news catalyst type of play, blockchain company. So you can kind of relate it. I don't think anybody's trading it specifically in sympathy to any Bitcoin price action, but you can kind of also justify any play on this one a little bit to say, okay, Bitcoin's holding decently, and it's also got that going for it too. So it's kind of that point as well. Growing volume today here on the daily, which I love to see, which you need to have these continually progressing multi-day continuations. Man, to buy this thing once again, did not have a gap up from that previous trading day, but still price action was holding well. Volume coming into support action immediately from 8 cents here. Shoulda, coulda, would have been buying this one if I was watching it, didn't have my hard focus. I think for me, really two tickers that I'm going after hard is kind of my limit for right now of my max capacity of the effort I need to be putting in each and every single one. That's almost to the point of a little bit of strain of watching two tickers versus, hey, I think there's 3 charts here. I think there's 4 setups that I think I could certainly trade well or have the opportunity to do what I think they're going to do, but I just can't do it. I don't have enough eyes or hands to press that many buttons at the same time. With this one, yeah, if you're able to get a fill anywhere around here, it's a decent little percentage move, 10% at least within these first 3 minutes. Has a pullback, holds VWAP decently well, tries for a new high day again, holds around there and continue to get a nice little block here, trading percentage all the way just under 12 cents here if you're buying anywhere here. Getting this great entry here right around this 10 cent obviously emotional psychological level, that whole 10 cent level as it gets hard volume to push through the upside of there. Pretty much immediate and very nice, easy hold as a long if you're holding to the upside for there. And then held this VWAP all the rest of the afternoon, had a little bit of a pullback to VWAP, then just kind of chugged around there. So we'll see what it wants to do in the next few days here. Again, it's not like a huge Bitcoin sympathy to style of play, but certainly could, if Bitcoin's going to run, if anybody sees blockchain, it's certainly going to entice a lot more people as well into that. Decent dollar volume of the day, $3.5 million volume. So not like it's so abysmal or just, even you get a little bit of doji price actions here, but that doesn't completely shy me away from this one for that type of price action to trade it in that regard. So, and I also wanted to mention COMS as a morning number. Seeing more and more of these come out. This was around that 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time frame as the press release comes out. Huge spike, but then huge pullback to where that next red candle then starts, and then you get that great reverse V on the VWAP that just looks like it's going immediately straight up and then just completely crumbles. It actually gets another perk after it kind of fakes out, looks under VWAP, but then that really didn't test any new highs or test any patience. It would have certainly been scary if I was actually short this one, trading off of that morning dump pattern that I do like to trade of entry point confirmed by that break, the crack back under VWAP after the huge initial new spike, then easy ride down to 10% opportunity in the pre-market still, and then even more so in the market hours. Good to see that some of those are playing out some more, and certainly going to keep our eyes on it continually if that pattern starts to play out more and more again. That's all I had. Let's get into it with PROG. Very awesome trade, and very awesome to actually see too with, going through the other chats to see how different everybody traded it. Of, Mark Crook, how he's looking at this one, of how he traded it. Pretty much the exact same that I was trading it during market hours, but of course held a lot longer. But just so many different factors and opportunities. And even looking at this chart intraday, there's so many different trend lines and freaking, fake outs that you can draw there. You can shake a freaking stick at it. You can slap yourself silly drawing the many trend lines. But looking at the daily, first off, we're having this pattern again too, similar to, what's the other one now that I'm forgetting? I'm drawing a blank on what it did, but you get these pops, see something that started with a C, but the pops and then just kind of, holding, this one's a perfect wedge pattern coming into the weekend close from yesterday. I think I tried to trade it Friday as well too. Chris had a nice one on Thursday. That was the same type of thing, but thought we could get something like that last trading day on Friday. Ended up having today. I'm great to be a part of it and see that, especially with this pre-market, how well it was holding going into today. We were getting a little bit of perks here, still in pre-market testing these little high days here. So I thought, man, there's got to be. And I actually wrote down here there was a huge ask chewed through at 2.3 where my first entry was for that 100 shares that I said, man, if it's breaking through that now, I certainly want to be a part of it. If it could just rip with no halts in pre-market here, I think it could go from there. Nice risk reward there. Nice probability, at least, of the trade potentially happening from there. Had a little bit more legs in it from that point, few cents, and then pulled back harder back under VWAP, but then rebounded a little bit and pretty much held VWAP the whole rest of that little morning session. Got another 50 shares as it was holding with strength within that first minute candle. Took off some profits right around 2.4, so that let's pull back that. Yeah, let's do we can do that. And yeah, okay. So then, yeah, it was scaling out, took off as it was just kind of having a little bit of trouble right out of the gate. I would have thought this one would have been an immediate move, either an immediate move to the upside, or it would have just been building very strong, pretty much right out of the gate. I was looking for that pretty much direct move in order to sell into as the trade thesis for this one. I thought there was far more room to the upside for what it could do. And when it just wasn't there, and it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to take safe profits as they're here. This one could just totally reverse for whatever reason. It's a crazy, stupid, sketchy stock. It can do whatever it wants to do. It doesn't have to go to the upside today. So just scaled out right in that 2.4 mark with half of my position. And then, as it was peeling off harder, I ended up getting a bottom candle fill here at 2.35 for that last half, as I thought it was going to break even further below VWAP. And this was just going to be a little kind of maybe a chasey morning trade, that whatever that was, and say, okay, whatever, I'm fine with it. Doing that little morning volatilityness, I thought it was going to produce more, but stayed safe and secured profits as they were there and presented themselves. So then, okay, wipe that trade off the books, but it ended up holding that 235 level, put in a perfect little dip to VWAP here, And I said, man, I still think there's a heck of a lot more opportunity on this one. I do not think this one is done for the day. When normally, having taken the little stupid kind of chasey trade, it was a little bit over break even for the trade. It was actually the only time I profited on the trade between these two trades. But saying, gosh, I think there's plenty more here. So as we get a perfect little dip off of VWAP, it's building with strength again. I play into the upside of that one, continue the momentum, and actually cracks to a new high a day after that candle. Pulls back again a little bit, but still holds VWAP. But then there I'm saying, okay, I wanted to continue. I wanted the quick move to come from that point. That's what I'm looking for as a scalper trader mindset with this style of trade. It just didn't happen, so I cut really pretty much right at entry points, only to be faked out once again as it's holding VWAP again. Creates another new high a day, but just so John Wicky in all this for these top wicks and potential overhead that was there. It looks so great as it continues to build to this 245 point, putting in these higher lows. Again, like I mentioned with all these trend lines, of how many freaking trend lines you could draw on this day for what it did. I mean, let's look at we'll talk about this one here that ended up happening later, but how about this one here that was building that ended up breaking to the downside, holds VWAP, hard fake out with volume that coulda, shoulda, woulda shaken a lot of people out. I think Mark Crook, and so the difference, I'm going way scatterbrained with this one, but Mark Crook trading this one, so different of how he's scaling in pretty much similar kind of entry points around where I was. I think he was even establishing more to around this little consolidation high, just under that 245 point. Well, meanwhile, I'm also thinking the same thing of, God, this looks great as a long, but I just can't, where I can't get back into it. But I also think too, even if I was still holding, it's hard for me to say too that I would get an entry there because I think the trade's going to happen either from there or this is going to be the point of no return. That's almost too far away in a sense of where I would establish my entry point. I wanted to either be in this one far more in advance and let it just work out to the upside, or just be in that very, very quick, very short scalping move of trading like from 245 if it was going to go to 26 immediately, then selling for that style of trade too. So different factors going into that one, but that's kind of my crux of this, of different entry points and exit points and what they need as a risk factor to say, hey, I do get into the second entry trade and we get a perfect dip off of VWAP, but I'm obviously a little bit further off of that dip bottom. But to say, hey, should I still look at this as a scalpy trade and risk that entry point, or to say, hey, let the trade breathe, let it continue to go, when it did end up failing and dying off, but still kind of held trend a little bit. It did break pretty much all the technical levels you could say too, and looking at that hard red candle with big volume, you could say, well, that's tough to continue to say you want to be long in this one. But that's just what the market is. It's just crazy manipulation that tries to wear you down and knock you out time and time again through all of these different just little stop hits and flushes to the downside, to the upside, and all these different things. In the end, all you can really do is look at these charts and say, man, this thing was up 40% today. How do we learn to attack these further and better and harder in the future? So, I can look at this and say I was playing it safe with both of these trades and secured the profits as they were there, but obviously looking at the end of the chart, not that I want to continue to try to get back in these later in the afternoon or even in the morning session still to, ring that lottery machine bell again. But just to say too, hey, open up your mind and open up the chart to see, even if you hadn't traded it, coming to this chart fresh for the first time, what do you see here? What do you see happening? All those different factors like that too. So kind of going off on a tangent of that, but going back to just how many freaking trend lines you can draw. You can even extend this line to the left for how well it hold that trend line there. You can find another trend line here with all these red wick bottom candles. Look at this one here for this huge, this was the biggest 1 minute volume candle on the day too, coming up with two other red candles that had these insane little bottom wicks here for the trend that it was developing there to the upside of. So many different and the fake outs, the continuations, and all those different things too. You could just paint a freaking Van Gogh painting with the trend lines and the readings that you could do on this technical chart. But yeah, looking at it at the end of the day, it's like even through all of the fake outs, even through all of the trend breaks and failures, it still had plenty more in the tank. So there's that level of, man, how much do you read into the level 2? How much do you take the weight of the minute by minute scale of that time in sales to say, okay, there's more sellers than there are bidders. I'm just going to be out on this one and coming back into, and how does that play out on different charts compared to what this price action did today on PROG? It's looking pretty nice in after hours here as well too. I'm noticing that. But I'm certainly not going to play not being green on it, but I certainly know in the same light, there's far more room to play to the upside for how I played it in. It's tough still because, dealing with that cash account, dealing with trying to hold myself, just shy of whatever metric I use now so I have enough money to trade for tomorrow, or then thinking, okay, well, this does look pretty great as a trade. Should I use a day trade for it in my shorting account? Use up a day trade there and maybe go long in that way. Of course, it is looking nice now. It's tapping 310. But certainly a great highlight trade to keep in line for the future of, it's a multi-day holder. I think Mark Rook even mentioned it, and I was certainly looking at this hard Friday, the same thing of it's been continuing to hold these highs. If it's not dying as a bearish signal, it's got to turn into a bullish signal at some point for how many shorts are going to be stuck in this one, for just the time elongation that gets everybody on edge and gets everybody nervous that way. Is a great pusher motivator for volatility that way too. So that was PROG. I think that is all I had on that one. Let's go to WTRH now. Another nice little trade. I wanted to highlight this one as well too for the monthly recap for what this was. Had the third day surge play that I think I totally missed last Friday, but then continuing to hold the levels there and had that huge squeeze kind of into the close here, a little bit of a sell-off, but after hours holding well, pre-market holding extremely well. They also had like a news press release at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time for enhanced integration for on-demand delivery, whatever value that actually provides to, but I don't think it's actually a great, awesome press release that's trying to push this thing to the upside, but certainly would help for any more upside for this one. Again, the same thing kind of mentality with PROG of, as we're getting closer to that market open, thinking it's tough that when I do want to be in these ones and when that volatility right away within the first 2-3 minutes of market open happens, to say like, well, I wish I kind of would have been in this one sooner. So I used to come from that perspective of, oh, I'm just going to take that little protection, those few shares, like 10 shares of protection in the pre-market, because in that pre-market time frame I'm thinking, oh man, it could go to the upside from here. I'm just going to protect myself to appease my little bit of FOMO, so I'm not just like, oh, I knew I should have gotten long there, but now I got to deal with it here and blah blah blah, all that, versus now where today too I'm thinking it could go in this pre-market, and WTRH actually did go. Was it WTRH or was it the other one that did go in this pre-market? God, now I'm forgetting the other one that did actually go. Oh, CRXT. Was that it from whatever day that was for a third day play? That it did go in pre-market. And then, we haven't seen a crazy amount of those, but certainly that was the only opportunity for the day really, was that pre-market move. And now saying, hey, I think we're building with a little bit of volume here in this pre. We're pressing on these little high a day. It's kind of been a little wicky, but it's still holding around VWAP. So I think it's a certainly more probable trade, especially as we're going right into market open, as we're getting closer and closer and closer to that morning bell. Holding VWAP well, I think it's a nice risk reward from there. So established at 300 shares right away at 147 as it was building with strength. Had a little bit more, few more cents there, but then just peeled off again too. So predictable. Same thing with PROG and WTRH, that I had a few more shares right away from what I was trying to scalp, but then it ended up crawling back a little bit more. So I could have got a better fill both times with that. But again, similar thing too, that we're holding VWAP this whole time. We get a nice little move, continuation to 152-ish, and it was just looking bearish once again. And kind of get these little exhaustive bodied 1 minute candles here. So I'm saying, this may be the only amount of oomph that it has today. So took off 100 shares there just to at least secure a little bit of profits, but still leaning on the probability. I think this thing has a lot more upside, even through, and then having to see this hard red candle pull back more down to 148. Okay, we're still above entry. We're still above VWAP. We still have lots of little technical levels to base this trade off of. I don't think the trade is over yet. And sure enough, we get more upside after there. It continues to build. Nice little squeeze. Breaks a new high day. We get this another exhaustive volume candle, which is really all I'm looking for now too. I've completely stepped away from the mindset, which was bogging me down for so long, of just holding myself so firm to that, oh, I need to be trading to 10% and nothing less. If it's not 10%, it's not a real trade. And that's stupid mentality versus what all these millionaires and very awesome win rate traders are doing is take the money when it's there, right? It doesn't have to be holding yourself accountable to whatever stupid or just random arbitrary percentage price levels that you say have to be there. You're trying to force your opinion on the market. Just reading the chart and saying, okay, we're getting pretty exhaustive here, green to the upside. We're getting pretty huge volume as well too in the same light. Take some shares off, which is, it doesn't matter what percentage it is. We can look at the percentage in P&L later. Just take the money when it's there. You're green. And that's what I was looking for in this one. We're looking for the continuation of the upside. We're looking for this nice move in the morning volatility, in the morning volume that's there. And that's what we pretty much nailed. Same thing with PROG. There was more, a little bit more upside. This one, of course, far less than what PROG was, but had that little bit of, this was pretty much right-ish on the money for what the top on this move was. Had that more pullback, develop a new little trend here, maybe call it a little bit of a bull flaggish, that you get the perk and then developing this little flaggish bond. Of course, a little bit of a wider range for what the flag pull was, but then a continuation from there, slaps just under 1.7. But that was pretty much it for the rest of the day, and pulls back under VWAP and just chops around, does whatever for the afternoon session. But great trade on that one. Certainly wanted to highlight it. I think I will go over that one for the monthly recap as well too, but just continuing to put the focus on substantial substance-based trades and focusing on not just chasing, going berserk and seeing, because I know for certain if I was just still looking at whatever the big percentage movers on the pre-market scanner were, like ADMP, which did absolutely nothing. One of the big, let's type here. One of the big pre-market percentage movers, of course, had a harder sell-off after that perk. Another point to the morning dump setup, but just nothingness. I mean, if you're short, yeah, that's a great, nice little slow grind, being short as a morning dumper as well. But like these just have not been attracting my attention recently too, and where I would normally be focusing pretty hard on these ones and trying to force a dip and ramp or whatever, just morning chase out of those ones. Then I would have looked over at something at WTRH and seeing that it's up on the day, that's a nice percentage. And then I would have seen the daily and go, oh, it's in this continuation. It's got these nice little levels here. It's not a crazy low floater. I think it's like, what are we at? Yeah, 87 million floater short here. But remembering the ticker's name, remembering that's up on the day, seeing how well this pre-market was holding, and thinking, oh, no, now trying to chase it around one of these levels here, thinking that there's more upside into it. And maybe I made a little profit on that style of trade, but certainly would have been developing very bad habits and then psyching myself out, because then I would still be looking for a crazy 10%, even from where my crazy chase entry was, versus doing my scans in the after hours, having this one on watch list well in advance, coming into today too, being well prepared, seeing the different factors line up and being ready to trade in the moment as it's there too, and not just kind of panicking, throwing everything around, looking for more stocks to trade to fill that dopamine hit factor. But that's that's trading, that's life. I also mentioned too, this, I always keep in the back of my mind the mentality with I think it was Brian Shannon too, trading breakouts. This isn't a true breakout, but we are in this new established trend too, with the lack of volume that's been put in on this daily for how much volume we've been putting in. It's not like we're testing any hard volume profile levels. It's obviously technical resistance. You can see it clearly on the chart, but for the amount of bag holders that may be potentially in this one versus the type of volume we're trading now, it's not like it's super overhead, worrying, concerning. So carrying that same mentality with the breakout style of trade, it's hard to judge where you should take profits, because now a new trend has been established. We're in kind of new territory, almost for uncharted territory for, hey, maybe we could go to 1.7 pretty much immediately from there if there's just a wide of a spread, if there's so many different factors lining up that way. But that's the thing I always keep in the back of my mind with new breakouts or with those specific style of trades, to never force, especially never force that 10% mindset from your entry of taking profits from there too. We're kind of in new territory. Just let it go where it wants to, and even more so, just read what the chart says and say, okay, I think we're petering out here. I'll take profits, and if it goes on continuing more, then you got me. Whatever. I'm not perfect, and I certainly won't ever trade these from top tick to bottom tick. But just continuing to get those learning lessons and maybe the fake outs and the reading the bull flags and where to put your risk levels and stop factors and all that. It's exciting. I'm glad to be a part of it. So just over 6% trade for that one on WTRH, which was pretty much most of my day for this profits at least too. And that's really all I had. Not too much going in for the watch list for me for any scans right now. Nothing really catching my eye, but I'll certainly do some more later tonight for going into tomorrow's pre-market preparation. But yeah, great to continue this month with another A rating for me in my book of what was my mental attitude, what I came with the perspective from today to giving a little bit away to other perspectives that are out there and just kind of reading the tea leaves. Hey, what's going on over here? What are these people thinking? What are you thinking of all these things? But also understanding too that those things don't have any amount of influence whatsoever. It's always got to be me 100% too. I also forgot, we got to go over my swings. I ended up cutting any in the pre-market at a pretty much bottom tick as it was just dumping off the planet for how decently Bitcoin was holding. And the same thing, like I mentioned with the introduction, it wasn't like we were getting great gappers for, Bitcoin wasn't skyrocketing, but it was still holding 60K at least. But and these ones, and any especially too, as it was just like falling off the earth. I'm going, what are you doing? Are you even attached to this momentum whatsoever? So it's just like, it's not completely dead. Obviously looking a little bit round offish here, maybe the top of the parabola, if you want to call it parabolic, which is certainly not, but looking a little topish there, for instance. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't call this 100% dead. If these swings are just educational for me too. It's not like I have any hard data or feel for these either of what they do, but just took a little loss there. Maybe we get a break of this, that pre-market low too, where my exit actually was, and maybe it does end up falling off and this was a good exit, or maybe we get a bounce off of there and it continues to travel back closer to that 8.5 point and continue to skyrocket from there. But I'm out for it right now. If it does want to do that, like I mentioned, I certainly would be willing to get back into it with that very small size, maybe 10 shares once again. But out of that one, NAKD, I sized up again. So took another 100 shares. So that puts me just under $150 position size for this swing. Again, really educational. Not too much hard data for me on this one, but this is a former runner. Technical or daily level looks like it's just building, like it's just primed and ready to continue to build. This may be a little bit more of a drawn out one that we're going to have to wait a little bit more to see any more volume come into this one if a news catalyst comes out to the upside. Also interesting or cool to see that Tui noticed this one as a cool swing. I think he actually has a position on this one as well. So kind of good little vindication for me to say, oh, okay, I must be seeing something similar to what a former swing trader, former current short squeezer, crazy parabolic mover is also seeing as well. So not that I'm going to trade specifically based off of him too, but just also a good potential reassurance to say, okay, yeah, we're seeing something similar in the same light too. So it's not just a crazy, speculative that I'm wasting my time doing this, but good to see with that. And then OCGN, also the other swing with 10 shares remaining on this one still. Hard gap down from today too. Something about giving employees options or contracts that I saw. Inducement grants under NASDAQ rules. So yeah, $8.66 per share. Stock options looks like 48,000 shares. So yeah, something with, I think it was employees, not a direct offering, of course, but that tanked it a little bit and then reclaimed pretty decently well. I knew I wasn't just going to panic out when I first saw it, and did actually reclaim nicely, and it pulled back just under where it closed from that Friday, but now looking a little bit weaker here going into close today as we're under view app. So pretty tight leash on this one for what it wants to do. Again, it's always changing. It's funny that I can always look at these ones and just say, oh yeah, this is my hard technical level cutoff. this is what I'm going to do if price comes here. But then as you get into that situation on the day itself, it's just like, well, it had this, specific thing, so I'm going to give it a little bit more here, and just find all these little justifications or different reasonings for why you want to see the trade to develop this way or that way. But yeah, certainly hard day for today. If it starts to break this low here from the gap up we had from that initial day, I'll certainly be looking to take an exit for how far that is. Again, keeping that position size super, super small for just what these educational, experimental types of swing trades are. But yeah, not looking so great or hot for OCGN, at least as of right now, for any more continuation on that upside. But I still think there's a probability, so I don't think it's dead. So that's why my position size says my logic to be still in this one, I guess. That is all I had. Like I mentioned, yeah, not too much for scanning right now that's catching my attention, but I'll certainly do more going into the night tonight and pre-market tomorrow. So we'll catch you. Thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.